Welcome, my dishonorable ne'er-do-wells, the Green Scorpion here, and you looking for a countdown? Well, I got just the thing, and real cheap too. Just, fell off the back of the truck, real steel. You ain't gonna tell anybody, are ya? Yup, today we got a character archetype that needs no introduction, and often would prefer not to have one. Or in some cases they might. Thieves. When was thievery invented? Well, fun fact, it wasn't. Look, these don't all need historical context. As far back as we've had stuff, we've had other people stealing that stuff. Heck, this predates humankind. Animals steal from other animals all the time. It's wrong, and we know it's wrong. I'm not condoning you quitting your day job and taking up burglary. But in fiction, at least, there are many cases where we learn to love the lurkers and larceners. Maybe the villains have some weapon of magical Armageddon, and a sneaky snatch-up is a solution with the least violent murder. Maybe it's a Robin Hood figure stealing from a corrupt system for the starving serfs, or a Prometheus stealing fire to empower the people. Or maybe the thief is just a selfish bastard after me Lucky Charms. Even then, there's a certain thrill in seeing a talented tradesman get in and out without a chase. No matter how virtuous your main hero is, it's never too far-fetched to hire a teammate who knows how to open those do-not-enter doors. Thievery in video games go together like a lock and key, especially in RPGs where the thief title is used for any class that's relatively quick and crafty. All of these rogues and rascals warrant consideration, but I have some limitations to lay down first. Mainly, we want people who make a career of appropriating other people's goods. Ideally, physical goods. We're not talking assassins or spies here. If they can also kill people or collect information, that's fine, but it should be towards the end of relieving people of their material possessions. Ninja aren't thieves unless they're actually nabbing something tangible, and pirates, well, by definition, piracy includes thievery, but I also like my thieves to be inconspicuous, and gunpowder tends to sink that ship, so don't expect any swashbucklers today. And while the qualifications may seem a little narrow, my last rule might open the door a bit. There are no bonus points for acting alone, and no demerits for having a crew. All the greatest heist movies employ a team, and teamwork is a valuable skill. If hiring a group leads to a bigger payout for each member, then I'd say that makes the thief better. And on that note, better bar your windows and move your wallet to your front pocket. I'm the Green Scorpion, and these are my top 10 video game thieves. And no, I do not have the right to remain silent, and everything I say will be held against me in the comment section, I'm sure. As mentioned in the intro, RPGs have used thieves and rogues as a major category of characters since the very beginning, as early as the first Final Fantasy and the first supplement of Dungeons & Dragons. Even in the most limited systems, if there's a choice of class, one of them is probably going to be a speedy stabber. Low armor, but with stealth capabilities, big bursts of damage in the right circumstances, and utility that likely includes basic burglary. One of my personal favorites in recent memory is Throne from Octopath Traveler 2. Who can certainly pick locks and pickpockets, but much to the disappointment of many, I'm sure, she didn't actually make the list. While Throne can do those things and holds the legacy title of Thief, in terms of narrative, she's not a thief, she's an assassin. And we're not counting the stealing of lives as larceny. Fortunately, Throne's predecessor from the first game fits the bill much closer and retains most of her abilities. Therion, the white-haired loner from Octopath Traveler 1, holds the unfortunate distinction of being my least favorite playable character in the series. But, as I've insisted in past countdowns, Octopath Traveler does not have any bad characters, and this dexterous deviant has a great deal to offer. When the game begins, he's already pretty much the best thief on the continent. His name and face aren't known, but all noblemen whisper of a man who passes through vaults like a shadow. He maybe gets a little cocky though when he falls into a trap set up by an aristocrat named Cordelia. He does battle with an awesome ex-thief turned butler named Heathcote. Seriously, I'd love to learn more about this guy. And in the heat of battle, Heathcote manages to slip an unbreakable fool's bangle onto Therion's wrist. The bangle doesn't actually hurt him or anything, and it's not cursed, but I guess it's just kind of embarrassing for Therion, so he begrudgingly agrees to work for Cordelia in exchange for having it removed, tasked with stealing back a set of magical MacGuffins. With that established, I gotta say, Therion's story always struck me as odd in the greater plot of Octopath Traveler. His arc is all about him learning to trust others again, as he was once betrayed by his partner in crime Darius and has since insisted on working alone. But of course, since this is an RPG, he has 3 supportive party members with him at all times who just disappear for his cutscenes so that he can do his lone wolf act. It's the loudest example of this game's most criticized flaw, how there's not enough overlap between the different characters and their stories. But if you can ignore this aspect of Octopath Traveler, it makes sense to see the singular Therion gathering information in town, accessing mansions and tombs, and showcasing his thieving expertise to find the loot he's looking for, just presented in the structure of an RPG dungeon. And speaking of that thieving expertise, Therion's a great guy to have around. One of the biggest reasons for this is his overworld ability, Pick Lock, which is the only way to open the purple chests found in dungeons and caves. This ability is so important that I actually counted it against him on my ranking of the Octopath Travelers. It's just annoying finding one of these and knowing you're gonna have to run back here with Therion later. And for this reason alone, Therion might be the best choice for your permanent party leader. He can also lighten the pockets of NPCs, which comes with the risk of getting caught and ruining your reputation, but that's not hard to fix. And in battle, Therion is one of the most versatile characters in the game, with tons of viable options for his second class, and his starting thief kit does follow a theme of cunning peculation. Not only can you steal random item drops off of enemies, you can more metaphysically steal HP and SP. Maybe this can be contextualized as stealing an enemy's rations and eating them on the fly. And contrary to his perceived selfishness, Therion can share SP with party members, letting him fuel Cyrus or Ophelia for their big spells. If you're more into sabotage, there's Shackle Foe and Armor Corrosive to debuff opponents, and with his divine skill Aber's Reckoning scaling off of speed, he has some of the highest one-turn damage output in the game, if only situationally. But for me, Therion's true strength lies in his talent for staggering opponents, which I'm sure would come in handy during a quick getaway. With base access to swords, knives, and fire, he hits a lot of the early common weaknesses, and with HP Thief and Steel SP including 2 dagger hits, I don't care what the damage is, that's 2 stabs closer to them losing a turn. Granted, the way Octopath Traveler works, anyone can have Thief as their second class and do all the same moves in battle. However, Therion has these skills no matter what, and even still, he's the only one who knows how to open those damn purple chests, so we're kinda stuck with him. So yeah, I'll admit it, Therion's a bit of a mixed message in design, but if I'm being charitable, it all serves to show the importance of teamwork. His vocation is incredibly useful to his fellow party members, and as his story goes to show, Therion is better off with friends than alone, even if he expects other people to slow him down. You only need one master thief, but that doesn't mean that thievery can't be a team sport.
Don't start things you can't finish.
This next one might draw some debate, at least it did with my team when we were pitching candidates for this list. Nathan Drake from the Uncharted series. Here's the debate. Is Nathan Drake actually a thief? Well, yeah, of course he is. 2 of the numbered entries have thief in the title. Well, okay, maybe he's not a thief, maybe he's just among thieves, or maybe it's some other thief's end. He's obviously more of an Indiana Jones-style archaeologist/treasure hunter action hero. Well, setting aside the argument that a lot of treasure hunting is just glorified grave robbing,
it is the British way!
Nathan does more than his fair share of traditional thievery throughout the years. The very first mission of Uncharted 2, you're breaking into a Turkish museum to steal a map made by Marco Polo. And when he's brought on board to do this job, it's with the collective understanding that he's very familiar with this line of work. This was not his first rodeo. And in the earliest point we've ever seen in Nathan's life, him and his brother Sam are committing a burglary on the woman who bought their late mother's stuff. It turned out to be a misunderstanding because the old lady was cool, and then another misunderstanding when the old lady had a heart attack before she could tell the police that everything was chill. But it set Nathan and Sam's life in motion as globetrotting troublemakers. Heck, Drake is a stolen last name. He was born as Nathan Morgan, but his mom had been a historian with a theory that the famous British sailor Sir Francis Drake might have had an unknown heir. So when it came to starting this new way of life, the brothers decided to embody the role of Drake's descendants, Nathan having more than a slight obsession with Sir Francis Drake's adventures. That's how he met his best friend and surrogate father, Sully, after he pickpocketed him, of course, and hijacked a heist to steal Francis Drake's locket from a Colombian museum. So, ironically, he's nothing like Indiana Jones. That guy's always talking about things belonging in a museum. Nathan Drake's taking everything out. So over the years, Drake's gained connections with several other criminals in the Ancient Relic game and has been in and out of prisons around the world, all while keeping a remarkably clean record in the States. He's not in it for the money either. I mean, with how many expeditions Drake's joined in on, he doesn't seem to be outrageously rich. I don't know how many holy grails you have to unearth to earn a comfortable living. No. It's more about his fascination with our planet's mythology, and the reoccurring need to stop other, worse criminals from getting these items when they turn out to be magical. Remember, stealing is wrong, unless it's from pirates. At that point, don't even leave the crumbs. Drake excels in a number of skills, including stealth, driving, and marksmanship. But there are two unique assets that he brings to the table. One, his encyclopedic knowledge of history. These temples are full of locks and puzzles, but Drake's always got some sketch in his notebook that helps him suss out the answer. It's to the point where his rivals stop trying to even open these tombs, and it becomes more convenient to take Drake hostage or just wait for Drake to finish the puzzles first. To Drake's credit though, he knows that his enemies are lurking like hyenas to scavenge his hard work, and he gets very good at spinning those situations in his favor. And two, the man is a goddamn chimpanzee. Given the series' somewhat grounded setting and photorealistic graphics, it only highlights how ridiculous Drake's grip is. Be it treetops, rooftops, or mountaintops, this guy's finger strength must be top-notch to pull off some of these maneuvers. The plot armor helps too, dude's got Jack Sparrow luck. Except Sparrow actually died that one time. The more I think about him, the higher I think he should go, but I'm capping him at 9th because, admittedly, not everything he does in these games fits into the standard definition of thievery. And while he's going to save the day, it's gonna be messy. Those MacGuffins are gonna change hands a dozen times, a ton of vehicles are gonna get wrecked, Drake's gonna rack up an obscene kill count, refuse to comment on it, and at best return home with some auxiliary gold that he found while his target treasure sinks safely to the bottom of the ocean. At least he seems to be doing things legit now with a successful salvaging company that incorporates his love of the plunder, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got pulled into the world of crime one last time. Number 8 is also an interesting case from an interesting case. The Ace Attorney series usually has you investigating acts of murder, but in Phoenix Wright's third game, the spiky-haired lawyer is given a change of pace with an act of grand larceny. Meet Mask Damask, an enigmatic malefactor performing theatrical thefts of cultural artifacts under the light of the moon. Unlike Therion and Drake, who are mostly only known in the criminal world, Damask is a phantom thief. We'll get more into that phrase later, and yes,
you'll never see it coming.
But the idea of a phantom thief doesn't just belong to one series, it's actually very popular in Japan. Inspired by the works of 1800s French novelist Maurice Leblanc, which became very popular in the Land of the Rising Sun, a phantom thief, or gentleman thief, is a well-dressed masked criminal known for leaving calling cards and making appearances on rooftops before disappearing into the night. Well, after 5 museum heists, Damask is finally caught, and Phoenix is called to defend this debonair ne'er-do-well. Wait a minute. This guy? Really? So, yeah, meet Ron Delight, a nervous wreck ex-security guard claiming to be the Phantom Thief. Now, that can't be right. Obviously, he's an imitator just trying to get attention, and the best way of proving his innocence is to find the real Damask and undamask him. That brings us to Luke Atmey, an insufferable wannabe detective who claims himself to be Damask's greatest rival. And with a little digging, we're able to prove that it was he who stole the sacred urn of Kurayan, and presumably the 4 other treasures. All well and good, except it seems that crime is Atmey's alibi for another crime, the murder of Kane Bullard, whom Ron Delight was in the same room with, so this is a murder case.
Oh, there's a big surprise!
Okay, so another day's investigation, another day's trial, and we prove that Luke Atmey was actually the murderer, and the person who stole all those relics was Ron Delight. But because he was acquitted yesterday, by the law of double jeopardy, he can't be tried for these crimes again, and Ron gets to go scot-free. What's going on here? And who exactly is Mask Damask? Well, depending on how you look at it, Mask Damask is 2 people. Ron put on the costume and orchestrated the first Damask heist all by himself, having just lost his job and wanting to find a way to support his wife's excessive spending habits. Luke Atmey figured out it was Ron, but rather than turn him in, Atmey blackmails Ron into performing 4 more heists, positioning himself to be the detective that would hunt Damask down, all to satisfy his own twisted ego. Atmey effectively became the plan maker, and to his credit, Ron was never caught until Atmey decided to betray him. Now, I did say that thieves on this list were allowed to work in a group, but in my mind, the true Damask is Ron Delight. Even if he's a bit of a mess, and even if Atmey was making the plans, Ron still executes those plans perfectly. And it was him who came up with the enticing character of Damask in the first place. Ron might seem like an idiot, but he was telling the truth the whole time. He is Damask, and there are moments where a glimmer of genuine brilliance ekes out of him. For example, Ron is the one to notice that outside of the first heist that he chose, all of the relics stolen were of little monetary value, And despite trying to get convicted on the first day, it's Ron at the end of the case to say, hey, by the law of double jeopardy, aren't I kind of immune to consequences now? Ron is such an oddity in the series for being the only criminal put on trial to truly get away with his crimes. Besides maybe Magnus McGill, but he immediately dies in a fire after his acquittal. We know that Ron stole those treasures, but there's nothing we can do about it now. And unlike Dahlia Hawthorne or Manfred von Karma, I seriously doubt that his past will ever catch up with him. In fact, the Damask legacy is still alive and well in the series. Okay, maybe not alive strictly speaking. In the epilogue of Trials and Tribulations, Ron and his wife Desiree vow to start an agency to help criminals reform their ways and join back into the legal workforce. Though, by the sound of it, Ron plans for these criminals to escape their judicial consequences, and it's suggested that Ron might even plan new heists for thieves to help wean them off of crime slowly. Well, that's one way to do it, I guess. And Ron and Desiree also have a cameo in Ace Attorney Investigations 2, where it's pretty clear that they're scoping out the museum's security. Old habits die hard, I guess, but it is cute that they can do this together. And fun fact, the character designer actually based Ron off of some archetypes of yaoi manga, knowing how popular Ace Attorney already was with the queer fanfic community. So much Edgeworth Phoenix fan art. But ironically, Ron's got maybe the most stable heterosexual relationship in the series, and it's worth mentioning that Damask inspired many copycats, which includes one misguided burglar who gets himself killed in Investigations 1. And speaking of, I know fans are gonna ask this, so let me just say that I did consider Kay Faraday for this list. She's got the skills to pay the bills, but most of our time with her is spent putting those skills towards forensic investigations, not actual theft. Also, her dad, the former Yatagadas, as part of a mysterious three-person partnership is great, though a little more confusing in terms of each thief's motivations, and I found Ron much more straightforward and memorable. That said, I'm keeping Ron low because he kind of failed upward to get to this point. But you gotta respect the one criminal who manages to escape the claws of Phoenix Wright. Whether it's because he's secretly a 4D chess master, or maybe it's because he was just a friendly enough guy to win Wright's support is anyone's guess. Whatever keeps you out of jail, I suppose. At number 7, we have another fringe case. If you were to try and list the most prominent fictional thieves of a generation, you'd be hard-pressed to find any more emblematic than Team Rocket. Every week throughout our childhoods, we watched Jesse, James, and Meowth try in vain to steal a single Pikachu, occasionally broadening their scope to other Pokemon that Ash and friends happened to be around at the time. And for all of their big expensive mechs and hard-dug pitfalls, they only serve to further embarrass an organization that we all know would be nothing without Giovanni's leadership. This is why Pokemon Coliseum always stood out to me, because in that game, you're stealing Pokemon from other trainers mid-battle like it's no big deal. This is Wes, Leo if you're in Japan, and Michael if you're in France, which is extra confusing because Michael is the English name that they gave the hero in Gale of Darkness, but I digress. Let's just stick with Wes here. Now, normally when you catch a Pokemon in a Pokeball, the ball reprograms the monster slightly to respect you as its new trainer and obey your orders. It's not foolproof. A Pokemon that is too high of a level may refuse to listen to its captor, and the anime does a lot more to flesh out how these relationships pan out, but one hard rule is that once a Pokemon is caught and registers to a ball, it can't be caught by a different ball or commanded by another trainer outside of using the official trading apparatus. But then came Team Snag'em of the Desolate Ore region, who developed a machine that could overwrite the ownership of a Pokemon. Both Wes and Michael sport a portable snag machine, which can change any Pokeball, Great Ball, etc. into a snag ball, essentially letting you take the catch action right in the middle of a trainer battle. Outside of the throwaway line in Black and White about Team Plasma stealing Pokemon from trainers' PC boxes like so many credit card numbers, this is the only time in the series that we see such effective repossession of Pokemon, or as I like to call it, Grand Theft Revavroom. And while Michael has more Pokemon that he gets to steal by merit of the fact that his game is a little bit bigger, Wes more so has the criminal mystique that I want to feature here, because he's just so unlike any other protagonist in the series. Granted, we don't know a ton about Wes, but he never felt like the generic but lovable default trainers made for us to project onto. His design has so much more specificity to it. The blue coat, the gray hair, the Xehanort eyes, and this weird strip of white over his nose that I never really understood. Is that supposed to be a tan line from his goggles or something? Well anyway, despite any real insight into who he is as a person, Coliseum opens with Wes making a very drastic decision. Blowing up a presumably inhabited building. Yeah, but we don't know why. Wes was a member of Team Snag'em for a time, before he decided to steal the portable snag machine for himself and destroy all information on how to make a new one. And come on, look at that smile. He's feeling pretty good about his life choices. From there, he devotes himself to fighting back against Team Snag'em, as well as the greater organization Cypher that they're working with. I assume Wes saw the way that these guys were mistreating the creatures they captured, turning them into powerful but emotionally broken shadow Pokemon. We can likely assume Wes must care for Pokemon's feelings in some way, seeing as his starters are Espeon and Umbreon, both of whom require friendship with their trainer to evolve from Eevee. Yeah, Wes starts with 2 Pokemon, almost exclusively double battling because trainers in Ore don't mess around. They send everything at you at once. Instead of the picturesque vistas of other regions, Wes travels a mostly barren desert in his cool as hell hover cycle straight out of Mad Max, another improvement over his XD counterparts. Seriously, how can you go from this sick 300 Rapidash power engine to a dinky moped? What's more, the punks and thugs, usually relegated to the cycling paths in places like Kanto, are all over Ore. And instead of challenging gyms, Wes has to rub shoulders with these ne'er-do-wells in shady shanties like Pyrite Town and the outskirts sands. There are nicer places like Phoenix City too, but all in all, it's such a departure from the usual tone of mainline Pokemon games. Luckily, Wes has resolved to steal for the side of good now, only taking shadow Pokemon and never the loving partners of other trainers, but you know he could if he wanted to. And yeah, no matter how you slice it, the dude is stealing Pokemon. I don't know, that's just so crazy to me after years of being told that that couldn't be done, and Wes does so while maintaining an unchallenged moral high ground. Even Ho-Oh acknowledged this guy. Who's special now, Ash? Number 6 seems obvious, but I just could not get him out of my head. That's right, it's Joker from Persona 5.
You'll never see it coming.
No, they totally did. Now, on the one hand, this game is brimming with so much larcenous energy that it's hard not to want it at number 1. But on the other hand, we're not usually stealing anything of monetary value in this game, so do the Phantom Thieves even count as real thieves? Well, let's break it down. Since it first spun off of Shin Megami Tensei, Persona has first and foremost been a dungeon crawler. And starting with Persona 3, they really hit on the formula of juxtaposing the harrowing labyrinths of the metaphysical world with the humdrum student life of the material world. You go to school, you make friends, you save up money, and then you breach a dimensional barrier and fight some cognitive demons in turn-based combat, ultimately fighting off an eldritch god with the power of friendship. And this gun you found. And while Persona 5 sticks to this formula in many ways, the story of this game shifts the perspective of the gameplay loop with a heist flavor. Early on, our bespectacled hero gets wrongfully branded as a criminal and is forced to attend a new school in Shibuya. This ostracizes him, but he quickly makes friends with a number of other kids who were also ostracized by society for their own reasons, and share a similar yearning for justice against certain corrupt adults. The law and government have proven unable and unwilling to address these adults' crimes, and it's not like you can just go up and punch the evil out of the sex-pest volleyball coach. Ryuji kind of already tried that. So when the lawful route is unavailable, Joker finds a way to serve justice outside of the law, sort of like a noble Robin Hood. Or more appropriately, Arsène Lupin. So we talked about Phantom Thieves earlier with Damask, a sort of anime evolution of the gentleman thief trope that became popular in the early 1900s. In particular, French author Maurice Leblanc became famous for his character of Arsène Lupin, who appeared in several novels and short stories. There were other gentleman thief stories before Leblanc, robbing museums in their best suits and leaving self-aggrandizing calling cards, but Leblanc's works became especially popular in Japan, best exemplified by Lupin III, a manga and anime series starring the original Lupin's grandson. Also, fun fact, LeBlanc wrote many crossovers between Lupin and Sherlock Holmes, whom for legal reasons was sometimes renamed Herlock Sholmes. And it's for this reason that a Herlock Sholmes appears in The Great Ace Attorney, who is more of an homage to LeBlanc than any fear of an expired copyright. So why does all this matter? Well, not only is Arsène Lupin the predecessor to Joker's band of Phantom Thieves, he's also the first persona that Joker ever gets. So while as the Fool Arcana, Joker is able to recruit a vast number of metaphysical creatures, ranging from Mothmen to King Snowmen to Chariot Phalluses, in the depths of his soul, he is most resonantly Lupin. And Joker's not just pulling off heists, he's pulling off mind heists. If the police won't punish these CEOs, politicians, and rotten adults, this ridiculous problem requires a ridiculous solution. What if we just stole their desire to do bad things? This sounds like a job for the kids next to- the Phantom Thieves. In any other game I would find this super contrived, but I like it here as a sort of wish fulfillment plot. Like, I wish it was this easy! And the story will examine the ethical ramifications of just changing someone's personality like this. It's Inception as a traditional dungeon crawler. Joker trades in the swords of past protagonists for a sleek knife and a handy gun that has bullets as long as your enemy thinks it has bullets. You've got grapple points to access rooftops and rafters. There's an added emphasis on stealth and sneak attacks. The enemies take the form of guards on the map, and best of all, the procedurally generated floors of past games are now carefully designed locales full of secret passages. And the forms these mind palaces take recreate some of the most famous heist scenarios. You got a museum heist reminiscent of the Pink Panther or National Treasure, a casino like 21 or Ocean's 11, a bank like Point Break or The Bank Job, a cruise ship like Deep Rising or Assault on a Queen, and an Egyptian tomb because Persona agrees with me that tomb raiding is just glorified grave robbing.
It is the British way.
You also got the castle and the space station, which elevate the concept in fantasy and sci-fi directions respectively. Many a D&D adventure is structured like a heist, like that underrated movie Honor Among Thieves. And the original Star Wars was kind of a heist if you think about it. Steal the princess from the Death Star. Okay, so Persona 5 checks out as a thief game, certainly. But is Joker a good thief? Yeah. As yourself insert, he can be completely OP, an expert marksman with glimmering charisma, able to talk down enemies or just delete them with his ever-growing arsenal of spells. His confidence and wit translates through the metaverse into an incredibly athletic parkour master, and for anything he can't do alone, he has an awesome team to cover his back. Morgana with his experience in the metaverse, Ryuji as the muscle, An the femme fatale, Yusuke with his clarity and precision, not to mention the calling card design, Makoto who at times feels like the only brain cell in the group, Futaba as the hacker and the girl in a chair, and Haru the classy benefactor, plus a few others in Royal, Strikers, and Tactica. It's a messy team to be sure, and on their own, they each make some pretty blatant mistakes. Like, An cannot act to save her life, Makoto tailing you before the third dungeon is a meme at this point, and Ryuji has shouted openly and aggressively about being a phantom thief in more than one crowded restaurant. We're constantly reminded that these are teenagers. But with Joker as their leader, it's amazing what these kids can pull off. Some of my favorite moments are early on when they have less resources to collect information, like sending An in as a model and having her take a really long time to undress while Morgana sneaks through a cubbyhole to unlock a door in Madarame's house. Like, yeah, it's silly and low stakes, but that's a bona fide heist. And how can you not get chills when Joker gets captured by the police, Akechi shoots Joker in the head, all hope seems lost, and Ryuji sees it all on the news and says, "We got him." And it's actually all going according to plan, and Joker's actually the 4D chess master who caught Akechi with the Inception dream within a dream trick. They may not be the most professional vault busters, and the vaults they're busting might technically be imaginary, but they get results. Consider my heart stolen.
Yeah! Nice!
A spectacular victory!
A series of increasingly elaborate heists, artifacts of great significance stolen from nearly every country on Earth within weeks, all by a criminal organization led by a figure so famous and yet so elusive. With law enforcement scrambling to keep up, one question remains on everyone's mind.
Where in the world is
Carmen San Diego?
Oh, you think I'm being too silly now, including an edutainment game character on this list? No. Carmen San Diego is one of the most accomplished thieves in video game history, and you will show her some respect. Starting as a geography-based adventure game for the DOS in 1985, the Carmen San Diego franchise gained renown as a teaching tool in elementary schools across America, practically inventing the edutainment genre and launching a massive multimedia franchise including multiple animated series, a kick-ass game show, and video games that are still being developed to this day. As the development rights shifted from Broderbund to the Learning Company to Gameloft, there's never been a solid canon to the Carmen series, but several key points remain consistent. Firstly, Carmen San Diego is just an absolute badass, and she was modeled off of Brazilian performer Carmen Miranda, so there's some Latino representation for you. Carmen is usually the head of a criminal organization called Vile that specializes in stealing objects of international and historical significance. And if she's not leading Vile, she's a rogue agent and our best hope for taking Vile down. Her list of capers includes fairly believable objects such as Gandhi's glasses, the best cigars in Cuba, and the winning puck from the very first Stanley Cup. But then there are the gargoyles from the Notre Dame Cathedral, the Zare River Ferry, the ceiling from the Sistine Chapel, the entire island of Bali, the Mountain K2, and all of the salt out of the Red Sea.
What?
This is some Despicable Me levels of bullshit, and it's never a question of whether or not she can pull off these heists. By the time we come in, she and her underlings have already stolen the object in question. Presumably with a shrink ray? Doesn't exactly explain the salt in the Red Sea, but anyway. As a 9 to 12-year-old recruit at the Acme Detective Organization, it's our job to go from country to country and glean clues about where the thieves might have gone next, such as what currency they exchanged, the colors on the flag, or the mention of specific landmarks, all while jotting down their physical traits so that we can make out the warrant on the right crook before the trail goes completely cold. And it takes exactly 1 week for the trail to go cold. Such is the effectiveness of Carmen's transcontinental escape plans. Apparently all of her underlings' heists are planned by Carmen herself, and only used to distract the police while Carmen performs the final heist herself, be it a piece of the Trans-Arabian Pipeline or the entire Mekong River. And naturally, with such a popular character, eventually side games were made to teach more than just language arts and social studies, and in those games we get a bit more insight into how Carmen's pulling this off. Turns out she's a gifted inventor. In Carmen San Diego Math Detective, the masterminds build the quantum crystallizer, which seems to work as a way of storing impossibly huge loot. She's also made the Babble-On machine in Word Detective, which does a similar thing, but less Ant-Man quantum detanglement and more just writing the object out of existence. I think. And in Think Quick Challenge, she built nobots that can steal knowledge right out of people's heads. Given this, I assume Carmen is versed in cognitive psychology like Futaba, so she could totally join the Phantom Thieves. Carmen has also taken her crime spree to the stars in Where in Space is Carmen San Diego, where she notably stole the rings of Saturn, and has transcended the 4th dimension in Where in Time is Carmen San Diego. And if that weren't ridiculous enough, she never really gets caught. These games are hard, and I don't mean just for 12-year-olds. I still think the original 1985 game is tough with Wikipedia open on a second tab. You can't actually pursue Carmen until you've successfully captured several other criminals, and most games have her slipping away anyway, even if she does return her ridiculous historical trophy. Granted, we don't know that much about Carmen herself, at least in the games. The 2019 Netflix series casts her as a hero working to steal back from Vile, with a more fleshed out backstory. But what little the games have shown does paint an interesting picture. Usually, she's a former Acme detective herself, brought in as an orphan child prodigy before she just got bored testing her wits against criminals and decided to compete with other detectives instead. This is interesting because it means that Carmen was previously in the same place the prospective player is in now. A kid with an interest in geography and no reasonable right to be a detective yet, solving crimes the cartoonishly incompetent police can't handle. Carmen represents someone who has mastered the game that you are currently playing. And she's not in it for the riches or the fame, she's in it for the challenge, for the love of the game. Because if there's anyone who can navigate global trivia better than she can, they're the only ones worthy to bring her down. Now granted, much of Carmen's success is attributed to that cartoonish incompetence of her peers and the madcap logic of her abilities. Put her in, say, Uncharted, and I'm sure people could give her a run for her money. But few criminals are as untouchable and as eponymous as this lady in the crimson trench coat. So begs the question, where in the world is Carmen San Diego? Carmen San Diego may be the most infamous thief on the planet Earth, her version of Earth anyway, but next we have the most infamous thief in the Milky Way galaxy. Kasumi Gooto, master thief and master manipulator, with so many heists and deals under her belt that she's constantly surrounded by enemies who can't put a face to the name that they've learned to despise, a criminal whose deeds are legendary but whose identity remains shrouded in mystery to most, and a worthy addition to Shepard's squad if you happen to shell out the extra money for the DLC. Probably the best way to demonstrate Kasumi's prowess over Carmen's is how the character is first introduced to you. As Shepard prepares for their suicide mission against the Reapers, they're supported by the human supremacist paramilitary group Cerberus and its shadowy leader, the Elusive Man, who thinks that Shepard might benefit from the services of a master thief. But when Cerberus attempts to track Kasumi down, Kasumi catches onto this, evades Cerberus, and instead agrees to meet Shepard on her own terms. So while Carmen San Diego has the Acme Detective Agency running in circles, entrusting their entire operation to children with above average grades in social studies, Kasumi Gooto is outmaneuvering the omnipresent gazillionaire that Shepard and the Mass Effect player themselves can't hope to locate. What I'm saying is that the bar is set a little higher for Kasumi, and she clears that bar like Yaroslava Mahuchik. Kasumi's loyalty mission involves you helping her steal back a memory bank belonging to her former partner in crime and love, Keiji Okuda. And of course she has a personal stake in all this because it contains the memories of the man that she loved and lost and perhaps the only unsuccessful job in her career, but it also holds quite a few sensitive government secrets, making it very valuable and very well guarded. Sure, she needs Shepard's help to get it, but I put it as a point in her favor because she knows when to get assistance, rather than, say, Therion, who goes at it alone and ends up with a bangle stuck to his wrist. Now, I should point out that given Kasumi's data theft and her Japanese descent, I was actually considering her for the top 10 ninja list a while back. Ninja were closer to spies than thieves, after all. But despite how good of a hacker she is, stealing information usually requires her to take some kind of physical object. I mean, it's not like she's the shadow broker. And when she joins you on the Normandy, her corner of the ship is decorated with all sorts of proudly pilfered prizes, including giant portraits that she's stolen, all accompanied by amusing anecdotes of heists past. So how does Kasumi pull all this off? Well, besides her penchant for hacking, letting her through a lot of encryptions and electronically locked doors, she is a master of stealth thanks to her personalized cloaking device. Unique to her as a party member is the Shadow Strike power, which has Kasumi turning invisible. This can allow her to escape a sticky situation and return to the back lines, helpful because she's not the tankiest squad mate, but it can also let her get behind enemy lines for a D&D style sneak attack, one of the biggest sources of single target damage in the game. Kasumi also gets the Overload and Flashbang Grenade moves, which allow her to disable, stun, or altogether bypass enemy shields. This can be really helpful as Mass Effect's approach to higher difficulty often manifests as just a lot of characters with shields and heavy damage nerfs, and Kasumi definitely has the most focus on sabotage than any other character in this game. Interestingly though, I think my favorite use of her invisibility cloak is in the Citadel Party DLC, which was made as a sort of last hurrah for the Mass Effect trilogy and puts all of your surviving squad mates into a friendly hangout. While all your favorite characters are mingling in games and libations, Kasumi spends most of the party cloaked, only talking to Shepard to make quippy observations about the others. And Shepard's choice of undergarments.
Can't you just mingle and have fun like a normal person?
Why would I want to do that? By the way, you have excellent taste in underwear.
Glad you could make it, Kasumi.
She also comments on Jacob, who she has a not-so-subtle crush on. I do appreciate the fact that she can have another love interest, even though her backstory is focused on a past lover dying.
I thought you were happy with your memories of Keiji.
Hey, I'm nostalgic, not dead.
Yeah, for someone so secretive, Kasumi is far from antisocial. And this not only makes her a more interesting character, but a better thief. She is incredibly observant of the people around her and knows how to predict their movements, which demonstrably helps her rob them. I mentioned back in Top 10 Mad Scientists that Mordin Solus was the most observant squad mate when it comes to commenting on other characters' lives, which is true if you don't count the DLC characters. Basically getting an entire development cycle to herself, Kasumi has way more incidental dialogue, and she wants to spill the tea on everyone. This girl loves gossip. If you got into a relationship or broke one off, odds are Kasumi knows about it and has something to say. Probably most impressive, the Samara Morinth thing. Okay, so long story short, Samara wants you to track down her crazy daughter Morinth, who looks just like her, and depending on your actions, Morinth can join your party instead of Samara by stealing her identity, a secret between her and Shepard. And Kasumi is one of the only characters to ever mention that Samara has been different lately. Get just the right ending conditions, and it's pretty much confirmed that Kasumi knew the whole time. So, in summation, we have a shinobi-level space traveler with master hacking skills who can read your poker face and hide hers from you completely and could be in the room with you at any time without you ever knowing it. She's got all the qualifications to thrive in this crazy, seedy universe. Let's get back to the RPG tradition of thief characters for a second. I mentioned towards the beginning of this video how Final Fantasy went a long way in cementing this motif. Thief is one of the original 6 classes in Final Fantasy I, specializing in speed and evasion over raw attack power. In the original, Thieves upgraded into Ninja, which makes sense in that context, but as the series went on, Thieves and Ninjas took on different archetypes, and most of the games had either an equipable Thief class or a character that was dedicated to stealing. Yuffie from 7, Riku from 10, Baltir from 12, even main characters like Zidane from 9. But my favorite has always been Locke Cole from Final Fantasy VI. Plus, I snubbed him from returning to top 10 heroes, so I feel like I owe the guy. We first meet Locke as an agent of the Returners, a freedom-fighting faction facing the fiendish fascists of the Federation. Well, the Empire, but I needed another F word. Not that one, you animals! Locke acts as a go-between for the Returners leader Bannon and his ally King Edgar of Figaro, and in this way he reminds me a lot of Fire Emblem's Matthew, a character who would have definitely made the top 15 version of this list. And the first thing we see Locke steal is actually a person, helping smuggle an amnesiac Terra out of a besieged village so that she can defect from the Empire. Through his knowledge of tunnels and escape routes, Locke quickly proves himself a capable thief. A term that he personally despises. He prefers to call himself a treasure hunter, which is even the name of his unofficial class on the menu screen. But again, we went over this with Nathan Drake, it's not that much different, especially when the treasures you're hunting are currently in the Empire's clutches.
It is the British way!
That's actually the whole reason Locke's here, jumping into his backstory. Locke's extra-legal ways of making money put him at odds with his girlfriend Rachel's father in the past, and their attempt to run away together led to Rachel falling off a bridge and suffering serious amnesia, with the father blaming the accident on Locke himself. Rachel was later killed in an Empire raid while Locke was away, and while that's hardly Locke's fault, he feels a deep personal guilt for not being there. This causes Locke to be extra protective of women in his life, particularly Terra and Celes, which, yeah, is kinda chauvinistic, but also an incredibly endearing flaw in my eyes. Less endearing is the fact that Locke keeps Rachel's dead body preserved in a secret shack. Yikes. And upon hearing of a fabled treasure in the Empire's possession that can supposedly resurrect the dead, Locke devotes his life even further to thievery, eventually finding employment with the Returners. We'll get back to that resurrection treasure in a bit, and no, it's not just a Phoenix Down. No, Phoenix Downs do not have the complete power to resurrect people, and no, Cloud could not have saved Aerith with a Phoenix Down. I am so sick of that joke. So outside of Zidane, thieves aren't normally the main character in Final Fantasy games, and I think it's because the designers want to give us a main character that can hit really hard. Locke can hold his own, boosting the best speed stat in the game, proficiency with daggers, swords, boomerangs, and throwing rings, the steal skill being upgradable to the mug skill so that you can do some damage and take items at the same time, and the desperation move Mirage Strike, which looks really cool if you can actually pull it off. But compared to the physical powerhouses like Sabin or Shadow, and especially the high magic characters like Terra and Celes, Locke isn't likely to be your go-to for boss busting. Makes it even funnier that Locke is so protective of these two women who completely outclass him in the meta. Despite this, Locke ekes out near protagonist status for the first half of the game, about as close to a single protagonist as we have in this game anyway, but I also think that the point of Final Fantasy VI is that it has no singular hero and everyone has to band together against a singular villain. And while the story does bounce around very often, Locke takes the lead on some of the most memorable and most thief-centric segments of the adventure. Take South Figaro for instance. While the other returners fortify in Narsh, Locke infiltrates an Empire-occupied town with hopes to slow and sabotage their military advance. During this segment, Locke's able to steal and disguise himself as both a merchant and an Imperial soldier by literally stealing the clothes off their backs. And side note, I always loved how the enemy names for these naked guards is birthday suit. That's a nice touch. And of course, there's the famous opera scene where Locke has to run across the rafters to stop Ultros from dropping an oversized weight on the performance. Sure, any of the party members can walk on these rafters, but I credit this to Locke, who is the intended party leader for this section. And when the gang and Ultros inevitably fall off the stage, Locke is clever enough to improv a scene to make it look like part of the show, defeating Ultros without scaring off Setzer, which is the whole reason that they're performing this ruse. And of course, there's that resurrection treasure. It turns out that the treasure he heard about was the Magicite of the Phoenix, because Phoenix Downs won't work, you need the whole ass bird. And Emperor Gestal hid this dormant demigod in the aptly titled Phoenix Cave. I hate this place, and the fact that you need to weather it to get Locke back in the world of ruin makes Locke probably the hardest recruit in the game. You can find Locke in the final chamber, and I want to know how the fuck Locke got here on his own. This dungeon can only be completed by 2 separate parties, so presumably 8 well-trained adventurers hitting switches for each other to proceed through this convoluted labyrinth of gates, and it's filled with high-level monsters and is only accessible via airship, of which we have the only one known to exist at this time. And yet, Locke got here by himself. That is a master of infiltration if I ever saw one. And unfortunately, even the all-powerful Mechassault can only bring Rachel back for a few moments to get some closure for Locke before she goes the way of Jean Grey, combining with the Phoenix and freeing her man up to date the mystical blonde lady. Hey, Rachel is also the name of the second Phoenix in the X-Men comics. Was this meant to be a reference? So yeah, the theme I've been leaning into while writing this is that while stealing is inherently selfish, the best thief characters have strong ties to other people, which allows us to empathize with them despite their criminal behavior. Also helps that they're stealing from bad people for a more noble cause. Locke's work with the Returners may be more to assuage his own guilt than for the betterment of the world, at least at first. But he can't fool me, Locke's a nice guy deep down. When the world goes to ruin and Sellers is trapped on a deserted island on the brink of despair, what gives her the will to fight on? A single bird. One with an injured wing that's been mended by a strip of Locke's unmistakable bandana. Think about that. That means that after Locke saw the entire world go up in flames, not only did he go right back to searching for a way to revive Rachel, ethically complicated as that might be, he also took time out of his day to help an injured bird he found. This is an entirely selfless act. He couldn't possibly have known Sellers would find this bird and get inspired. Let's be real, he probably thought she was dead. But it's this little bit of pure altruism that reignites the flame of rebellion that will eventually take Kefka down. That's a thief with a pure heart of gold. Or at least a heart of gil. Plus, he's playable in Dissidia NT, and now Mirage Strike is his limit break, so you can actually use it on people. Total win for me.
I knew it would end this way.
When I asked people the most important qualities of a thief, the most prominent answer I got was stealth. Goes without saying, right? Like, technically you can rob someone in a very bombastic manner, but to get away with it, you'll have to be covert either during or after the crime in question. So what character would you say is the pioneer of stealth in video games? The most common answer here is Solid Snake, who's got all kinds of ways to sneak around, but isn't what I'd call a thief. Maybe a spy, but more often a stealth ops soldier whose missions usually end with him blasting a giant robot with a missile launcher. Not exactly subtle. Similar marks for Sam Fisher, who's also very stealthy, but not a thief. But there is a third character that I think at least matches the significance of these two when it comes to implementing stealth in video games. A character so iconically kleptomaniacal that his series could only be called Thief. The development history of the Thief games is pretty interesting, actually. Originally, Looking Glass Studios envisioned a first-person sword combat game to take place during a zombie apocalypse in the middle of the Cold War. Interesting, but they felt that swords didn't really make sense in that setting over guns. The game was then reworked into a dark medieval story with an evil King Arthur's Camelot. Better, but the project just wasn't coming together for the writers or the marketing team. It was only when they came up with the idea to make the main character a thief that everything clicked into place. That character is Garrett, who started life as an orphan on the streets of a seedy steampunk city. Picking pockets to survive, a young Garrett noticed a mysterious man whom no one else in town seemed to see. And assuming this meant that he had something magical on him, Garrett attempted to purloin his valuables. He was caught, but it turned out that this man, Artemis, was a high-ranking member of the Keepers, a secret organization that does, in fact, use magic to walk around unnoticed. The fact that Garrett saw him at all was so impressive to Artemis that he took Garrett in and trained him in the art of stealth and subterfuge. Garrett excelled at all physical and mental aspects of these lessons, but emotionally, the Keepers found him too rebellious, and Garrett eventually left the Order knowing that he could make a better living as a thief for hire than an agent of some Illuminati wannabes. This would normally prompt the Keepers to take care of him, but the Elders can see the future and knew that this guy would come in handy at some point, so better not to burn that bridge. The Thief games see Garrett working for that bag, infiltrating the well-guarded collections of exorbitantly rich aristocrats for magical items and whatever else looks valuable, until he finds himself embroiled in a supernatural plot way larger than he bargained for. And it can't be understated how influential Garrett was to the stealth genre, the first two games especially. Coming out mere months after Metal Gear Solid, Thief the Dark Project is actually a double entendre. One, because the plot involves a project of dark intent by the bad guys, and two, because it was running on the new Dark Engine, a revolutionary way of simulating light and shadow in a time before games could render it in real time. Throughout his 3 games and a reboot, Garrett's greatest tools are light and sound, or sometimes a lack thereof. Obviously, Garrett is harder to see in the darkness, and by keeping to the dark corners of the room, extinguishing torches, throwing objects to make distractions, and slowing his pace to silently tiptoe, Garrett is able to pull one over on these otherwise quite clever guards. Garrett can fight if he needs to. In fact, the first game has a bad habit of locking you into combat scenarios, which are easily the worst part of the game, but everything about the gameplay system suggests that it's better to go the passive route. In fact, on higher difficulty settings, missions sometimes forbid you from killing anyone, because Garrett is professional enough to not add unnecessary murder to his rap sheet. He's great with a dagger, sword, and bow, but his best weapons are those that help him move around a conflict. You got the blackjack that can knock out guards if you catch him by surprise, and in addition to his traditional arrows, Garrett has blunt arrows for hitting far-off switches, noisemaker arrows for setting a distraction, fire arrows on the rare occasion that you want to light torches, water arrows for putting out those torches, moss arrows that can spread plant life to mask your footsteps, and even rope and vine arrows for getting up to higher places. This guy's a full-on Hawkeye! And though the system changes from game to game, Garrett is always great at springing locks, picking pockets, and suspiciously venting by unscrewing metal grates. And the best part about all of this is that Garrett is a video game character whose abilities are only as high as the player's skill ceiling. This game is stacked against you at points. While Metal Gear gives you a generous third-person perspective to see around corners, Thief locks you into first-person mode, leaning around corners with the knowledge that if you can see them, they can theoretically see you. And yet, despite this realistic handicap, Garrett gets the job done. And he's not just evading standard guards, but militant Hammerites, pagans with druidic magic, zombies that can only be killed by holy water, robotic sentries built by the mechanists, and eventually those omniscient keepers who trained him. In the first game, he's pitted against the mad trickster god, who he eventually defeats not with blade and steel, but by secretly switching his magical MacGuffin with an explosive forgery. How many thieves can you say basically outplayed Loki? Only Garrett. And technically Joker. But despite stealing from every faction, Garrett is highly respected by his community. All share the understanding that his services can be bought and are always worth the coin. If someone notices goblets missing from their cabinet, they assume it's Garrett, and so long as he didn't leave a blood trail, they don't try too hard to catch him once he's out of the building. It's not like you could catch him anyway, and he'll surely be back the next time he gets a contract. Garrett is so good, he's basically hedged out all other thieves from the city. He'll mention rivals from time to time, and you can even run into other thieves on missions, but they never pose a threat to your bottom line. And I think they know that. The Keepers trained Garrett to maintain peace and balance in town, and despite flunking out of the order, Garrett does exactly what he was trained to do, just at a higher premium. If you enjoyed Assassin's Creed, Hitman, Splinter Cell, or any other stealth game in the last 25 years, you owe Garrett some gratitude. And gratitude is free. Seriously, don't make him come to collect interest.
Alright, Oscar, so tell me, what happens to number 1 entry?
Okay, so it's like this, right? I was talking about the top 10 thieves in gaming, and they were all sneaking around and stealing up the place, and things are going pretty good. I start with that Octopath guy, and he's got knives and all, and I work alone, except when I work with a party, which is all the time. And he's kind of basic, but he gives me a good baseline, so I keep working. And I get to Damask, who's, kind of weird because he got caught, but then he didn't really get caught. And there's this dude stealing Pokemon from other trainers, and the list is getting really weird. And Joker's like, technically I'm mind-controlling people, but it's framed like a heist, so it's totally chill. And then there's Carmen, who's stealing full-on geographical wonders. Plus, she's a smoking hot Argentinian woman, and I'm always down to...
Oscar, focus. Number 1 entry. Please.
Right. Sorry. So, I'm almost done. And then I get to talk about Garrett, who's like, the thief, bro. And he's like, yeah, I revolutionized the stealth genre on PC, dog. And I'm like, yeah, good point. But I got one more for you. So I go to record the finale, but the Google Doc's looking like my bank account, man. Totally empty. So I'm all confused. I go to my co-writer and I say, Comic, cuz, did you lift the number 1 entry without telling me? And Comic's like, nah, man, I finished the final draft weeks ago. I got my own projects to screw up. And I was like, that's hurtful, but okay, I let it go because I'm starting to panic. We got the swiper swiping the swiper script. So I talk to my wife and she's like, hey, I don't know about your video, but there's a little animal in here with a flash drive in its mouth. Kishki chased it off. I think it was a raccoon. So I tell Amber to tell Kishki to track down the raccoon and ask him who stole the number 1 entry.
And what did he say?
He said, yes. Honestly, I'm glad the original finale got jacked because it was a foregone conclusion that Sly would be on this list. And when he wasn't in the first 9, I needed some kind of gimmick to surprise y'all. Because it's so painfully obvious that Sly Cooper is the most talented, influential, and iconic thief in video games. Sly was born into a long line of master thieves, dating back to the Old West, ancient Egypt, and even prehistory. I said in this countdown's intro that thievery predates humanity, but the Cooper clan might have invented it. All of the clan's riches were hidden in an island-sized vault, and the secrets compiled in a book as legendary as it is absurd, the Thievius Raccoonus. So, Sly was definitely born to thrive in the criminal world, but don't go thinking he's just some nepo baby. At a young age, Sly lost his parents and that sacred tome to the Fearsome Five, led by his family's nemesis, Clockwork. Still, Sly found his way to success without a single page of that manual or a single cent of his inheritance, just the memory of his father's stories and his own natural talent. Raised in an orphanage, Sly met his sworn blood brothers Bentley and Murray, and at elementary school age, the three started their career with a detailed heist to steal the headmistress's cookie jar. That is adorable! When we meet Sly in the first game, he's already gotten comfortable with infiltration and extraction. He's a whiz with that Cooper cane, a surprisingly versatile staff with a hook on the end, great for swinging on posts, nabbing keys off a guard's belt, or smacking a bitch when push comes to shove. He's also gained a Javert-esque rival in the form of the stunningly attractive Carmelita Fox, a police officer hell-bent on Sly's capture who nonetheless respects him. And yes, I find Carmelita attractive, but no, I am not into that. Behave yourselves. Anyway, Sly fans tend to agree that the series really found its footing in the second game, the first being more of a standard 3D platformer during a time where everything was a 3D platformer. But besides the change in gameplay, I think there are two main bits of evolution in Sly's abilities as a robber. One, while he's proved that he doesn't need the Thievius Raccoonus, he can now add its wisdom to his repertoire, including incredible parkour, complete invisibility, and time manipulation. Yeah, not all of these abilities come back in future games, but I think it's worth noting that he can do them. And two, there's a noticeable difference in how he treats his best friends. He clearly always cared about his partners, but Sly 1 has more examples of Sly dismissing or backhandedly insulting the other two. And it's only until the end of the game where he admits that he could not have gotten so far without them. And this is when Sly goes from a great thief to a master thief. It's not just about nabbing keys anymore. By utilizing the unique talents of his team, Sly heads a dynamic group that can pull off elaborate and fantastical multi-phase heists. I mean, Bentley is a genius mechanic and strategist who can hack things that don't even run on computers. And that was before he broke his spine and came back stronger. Murray starts as a simple getaway driver, but soon reveals himself to be an unstoppable force of muscle. And over the years, Sly's carefully hired other contracting specialists to expand the scope of his operations. Penny, who took over Bentley's role of drone piloting, the Guru with his power of telepathy, even past enemies like deep-sea disco diver Dimitri and demolitions expert Panda King, the latter of which was directly involved in the death of Sly's parents. Sly even buries the hatchet with the firework artist with the ultimate irony of saving Panda King's own child from a grim fate. I mean, why hold on to a grudge when you can just work together and steal more stuff? Sly may not always be the one making the plans, and he may not be the best fighter on the team, but he doesn't have to be because he's learned to manage such an effective crew. But there are some things that only Sly can do, not the least of which is his amazing acrobatics. The way you can just hit a button and snap to a surface, perching on spires and running on power lines, it feels so good. He's also a master of disguise, though his Italian accent could definitely use some work.
Soprano, alto, alto, soprano.
Not approved!
I really think he's gone the Dante route of getting less serious over time because he's just so overpowered at this point. Nothing short of a best friend's injury can break his laid-back demeanor. Well, in the original trilogy anyway, because he gets kinda moody in Thieves in Time. I'll let y'all decide on whether his weird jealousy over Carmelita was justified. Potential character assassination aside, whatever skill the job needs, Sly will find a way to get it done. Be it learning to operate a jetpack on the fly, winning the lumberjack games, or faking a prolonged case of amnesia just to hang out with Carmelita, that clever dog. And on that note, let me use Sly as a litmus test to answer an important question. Why is it so easy to love thieves? Stealing is, after all, a bad thing to do. And normally it's fine to make your main character do some bad things if you can make them redeemable in other ways or somehow justify the crime. But not for a second does the game treat Sly like a bad guy and he remains a beloved character. Well, for one thing, he does have redeemable qualities. He's suave, he's smart, he's loyal to his brothers, and he teases Carmelita, but he'll go out of his way to help her in anything besides his own capture. The dude once stole the most expensive stamp in the world and used it to mail her a postcard, thus giving her the credit for its return while also showing off. What a charmer. But it's worth noting that Sly strictly steals from other criminals, murderers and weapons manufacturers, people who stand to do a lot of harm with the power they possess. Not only does this prove Sly smarter if he can beat crooks at their own game, this gives him a narrative moral high ground that always gets the player on his side. He may not be perfect. Sly 3 ruminates on this idea that the most successful Coopers got that way by exploiting their partners and leaving them very little credit. But Sly proves in that same game that Murray and Bentley aren't simply a means to an end for him. They're his family. Sly arguably saved the world by stopping the rampaging Claw, but he doesn't bask in any of the glory because to him, it's just so obviously the right thing to do. And from what we see, he's not exactly living in a lap of luxury either. It's not about getting rich. The gang still sleeps in Murray's van half the time. I wouldn't be surprised if he inconspicuously donates most of his profits. He was an orphan after all. Ultimately, he's in it for the thrill of the game. And what's more attractive to an audience than a character doing what they love? This is true for many of the thieves on this list, but I find it's most obvious with this penny-pinching Procyon. He is our favorite ring-tailed rascal, leading in 4 games of cartoonish capers and hyperbolic heists. Truly the Robin Hood of video games. Particularly the Disney Robin Hood. Because you know furries love him. As should we all. I'm the Green Scorpion, and no matter what you think of Sly 4, I think we can all agree. We need to get this guy out of ancient Egypt, right? Come on, let's help this guy out. But until then, thank you all for watching, post your favorite thief in the comments, and I'll see you all next time. Now, I gotta get back to Monster Hunter Wilds.
Hey, where'd my PS5 go?
Give me a test 1 2 1 2.
Ayo 1 2 hi. Right. Sorry. So anyway, I'm all confused, right? So there. One more time.
Hey, I don't know about your video, but I think there was a that. Okay, let me try.
Go ahead. Yep, this is gonna take a few times. Don't worry about it.
Fishki.
Yeah, I really lose. Except when I work with a party, which is all the time.
And what did he say?
Ooh, that's a good one, actually. I like that.
Cool.
He said, yes. That awkward smile is gonna, like, really do it. You can take your time. Try yourself. You can take your time, honey. I'm going to edit just 1 second out of the. You can take 10. Need to drink the whole thing.
Faster. Oh my gosh, amateur.
Bro, why couldn't you be recording that?
I've been at work all day. I'm tired.
You should be recording that one, man. That would have been great for a bloopers.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Welcome to the Green Scorpion Productions, everyone.
Right? Shut it, you.